100% Chance of Wine, sponsored by The Lodge at Columbia Point.
Today on 100% Chance of Wine, we made our way to 14 Hands Winery in Prosser, and I'm joined by Keith and Chris, both winemakers here. And Keith, you have been around since really the inception. 2005 is when 14 Hands started up.
Absolutely. In fact, we were working on some of those wines as far back as 2002 and 2003, but our first releases were in 2005.
So how did 14 Hands, what was the reason why they wanted to start this winery? What was their main driving force behind this?
I think St. Michel Wine Estates had always had a number of traditional wine labels, and the conception behind 14 Hands was to have something more contemporary, something that was a little more playful.
And so 2005, they have been around, and you have been really in the wine industry for 28 years, working with Chateau St. Michel from the very beginning. Such a big, been around Washington wines for so long. Tell me more about your background.
Yes, I've been very fortunate. Like you said, I've been in the industry for over 28 years. I started out as a temporary, in fact, just shoveling grape skins out of fermenters back in 1992. But I found that I had such a passion for wine that I really stuck with it. I had the good fortune to become a full-time cellar hand for Chateau St. Michel. Eventually, I was promoted up to a quality assurance technician for Columbia Crest, and eventually made it into the winemaking team. During that time, I've had the good fortune to work on a number of labels, such as Columbia Crest, Domaine St. Michel, North Star, Chateau St. Michel. But when they came up with the concept of 14 Hands, I was all in, and I've been with ever since.
That's wonderful. And so now joining, you joined them 5 years ago?
2017 was when I joined the winemaking team.
And so you have such a unique background, microbiologist. What made that transition to the wine industry?
Yeah, so my background is in clinical microbiology, and I did that for about 12 years before I decided that I could not work in a lab anymore. I wanted to have something at the end of the day that I could walk home and say, I made this, or this was something that I produced today. Mm-hmm. And so I received a book kind of as a gift, How to Launch Your Wine Career. And I'm going to be perfectly honest, I did not even know that winemaker was a job. I did not know that you could get paid to make wine. Mm-hmm. My background lends itself to the scientific side of winemaking, and so I wanted to see what does the artistic side look like. Mm-hmm. And so I worked in some small wineries in Virginia at the time, and then I did an internship with 14 Hands in 2014, and then I moved out here in 2015 to start wine career activities in Washington.
So what would you say are some of the things that you're able to take from your last job to bring into the wine industry?
One of the things that I take from my last job is looking at winemaking as two specific disciplines. There is an artistic side and a scientific side, and you bounce back and forth between the two when you're making wine. Mm-hmm. When you're tracking a fermentation to make sure that it's healthy and that it's doing what you want it to do, that you're going to land where you want to land on the alcohol, where the sugar is, you are scientifically analyzing the wine. When you finish that process and then you go back to evaluate it to look at how you're going to pair it with something, then you're being artistic. And I think there's this really amazing blend of those two. Mm-hmm.
And so for you, Keith, what's important to you, as a winemaker in making these wines for 14 Hands?
What's important to me as a winemaker is taking the fruit and projecting what it's going to become down the road to wind up in a bottle that hopefully brings somebody some joy. So 14 Hands is all about just stewarding wine from the vine to the bottle. It's not about building something or tearing something down and putting it back together. It's really about taking a simple agricultural ingredient and guiding it gently to its final destination. But for me, it's all about happiness and joy. Having somebody pour a glass and having that moment of relaxation or celebration. Mm-hmm.
So any fun stories with you guys working together day after day in the cellar creating some of these wines?
I will tell you, Keith and I have a very different winemaking style. It works together very well as a pair, but I, on my own, am a very excitable, energetic, running around, trying new things every day. And he grounds me a lot when it comes to consistency, which is perfect for the way that the brand identity is supposed to be existing. We have that fun, playful, and also the consistency for the consumer. One of the things that we did a couple years ago was a series of oak trials through all of these tanks. There were 18 tanks. Each one had different oak in it, all at the same rate so that we could evaluate whether or not we wanted to move that into the program. And we finish tasting through everything, and I come to Keith with like this new, I want to do this, and I want to do this, and I want to do this. And he's like, those do not taste like what the consumer is expecting. You cannot do those two things. This one's fine. But that's our rapport. That's our back and forth.